I was unloading camping gear from my truck when I heard the sharp crack of a hand hitting flesh. It was immediately followed by my wife screaming. I turned around and froze. I saw a tall stranger in a black tactical vest standing in our driveway. His hands were still raised aggressively, while Chloe held her face and stumbled backward in shock. My name is Derek Bowman, and I am a 37-year-old active-duty Army Master Sergeant. I serve with the 5th Special Forces Group, the Green Berets, stationed at Fort Campbell, Tennessee. I have spent the past 16 years in special operations conducting high-stakes missions. My job requires absolute discipline, split-second tactical decisions, and surgical precision. My extensive training taught me to assess threats instantly and respond with exact, appropriate force. I learned to maintain complete operational control, even when adrenaline demanded destruction. I was built compact and efficient from years of special operations physical training. I am functionally strong for carrying heavy equipment and maintaining combat effectiveness for days. My expertise was in small unit tactics, close-quarters combat, and leadership under intense pressure. But none of that mattered in the 2 seconds it took to process what had just happened. A total stranger had just struck my wife in our own driveway while I was only 10 feet away. The only thing that mattered was the cold rage that immediately settled over me. However, that rage was tempered by 16 years of learning to control extreme violence. I had to maintain complete control when every single instinct screamed to end the threat. I dropped the heavy camping gear and moved toward them with deep purpose, but no panic. My military training completely overrode my raw emotion. Chloe was holding her left cheek, tears streaming down her face in pain and shock. The man who had struck her was heavy-set, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair. He wore a black tactical vest covered in fake enforcement patches, holding a clipboard in his hand. A second man in similar tactical gear stood near a dark truck, just watching the scene unfold. "Get away from my wife," I said firmly. My voice carried the exact command authority that made Green Berets respond instantly during combat operations. The man who had slapped Chloe turned toward me with unbelievable arrogance. He acted as if he completely controlled the situation. "Sir, your wife assaulted an HOA officer," he stated. I defended myself using appropriate force. "She is being cited for assault and obstruction." I looked at Chloe. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed maybe 120 pounds. She was a sweet kindergarten teacher who spent her days helping 5-year-olds learn to read. The idea that she had violently assaulted anyone was both absurd and deeply offensive. "What happened?" asked Chloe, carefully keeping my body between her and the man who had hit her. "I was getting the mail, and he stopped me, saying we had violations," Chloe said through tears. Her voice was shaking badly. "I told him we do not have an HOA and asked him to leave our property. He said I was interfering with official business. When I took out my phone to call you, he slapped me and said I was assaulting him by refusing to cooperate." The man stepped forward, holding his clipboard like a shield of authority. "I am Officer Arthur Kensington with the Whispering Pines HOA Enforcement Division. Your wife became verbally abusive and physically aggressive when I attempted to issue citations. I used minimal necessary force to defend myself from her assault. She is being detained pending the arrival of law enforcement to press charges." Every word was a calculated lie. It was designed to justify his violence while claiming an official authority he simply did not possess. I looked at the dark red mark forming on Chloe's delicate face. He had struck her hard enough to leave a highly visible injury. I looked at his hand, still positioned aggressively, and I made a rapid, tactical decision. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 while maintaining strict visual contact with both men. "This is Master Sergeant Derek Bowman at 5812 Maple Crest Lane," I stated clearly. "A man just assaulted my wife by slapping her in the face. I need police, and I need them right now. I am active duty military with the 5th Special Forces Group. The suspect is on scene." The 911. Dispatcher's tone instantly changed when I identified as a Green Beret. Sergeant, units are responding, code 3. Are you or your wife seriously injured? My wife has a visible injury to her face where she was struck. The suspect is claiming to be HOA enforcement. I am maintaining visual contact but not engaging physically, I replied. I will not engage unless he attempts to flee or assault my wife again. Sergeant, officers are 2 minutes out. Do not engage unless necessary for defense, the dispatcher warned. Arthur suddenly tried to leave, walking quickly toward his dark truck. I moved smoothly to block his path without actually touching him. You are not leaving, I commanded. You assaulted my wife. The police are en route. You will explain to them exactly why you struck a military spouse. The second man, who I later learned was Wallace Boyd, moved aggressively. He stepped toward me, which was a massive tactical error. My training assessed the threat instantly. 2 suspects, one showing forward aggression, confined space. I needed to establish control without causing injury while protecting my wife. I used a basic military combatives technique, redirecting Wallace's forward momentum with minimal force. I guided him smoothly to the ground into a strict control position. It immobilized him completely without causing any physical injury. The entire movement took less than 2 seconds. Wallace was face down on my concrete driveway with his arms tightly controlled before he even understood what had happened. Do not move, I said calmly. I have you in a restraint position. If you struggle, you will hurt yourself. Stay still. Arthur froze instantly, clearly recognizing that I was not a regular civilian. He realized that attempting to flee or fight was not going to work at all. Clarksville police arrived 90 seconds later. 3 units responded to an assault on a military spouse. Officer Jenkins emerged first and immediately assessed the tense situation. He saw me maintaining strict physical control of one suspect on the ground. He saw the second suspect standing motionless and my wife holding her face with a visible red injury. Sergeant Bowman. Officer Jenkins asked, approaching cautiously. Yes, sir, I replied. The suspect in the vest struck my wife in the face approximately 4 minutes ago. When his partner attempted to interfere with my 911 call, I restrained him. I used standard military combatives. Neither suspect is injured. My wife has a visible injury to her face from being violently slapped. Officer Jenkins examined Chloe's face closely. The red handprint was clear and obvious. Ma'am, did this man strike you? He asked gently. Yes, Chloe said, her voice still trembling. I was getting the mail, and he said we had violations. When I took out my phone, he slapped me. Officer Jenkins turned to Arthur with absolute cold professionalism. Sir, you struck this woman. She was assaulting me by refusing to cooperate with official HOA enforcement. Arthur yelled, desperately trying to maintain his fake story. You defended yourself by slapping a woman half your size. Officer Jenkins replied sharply. That is assault. You are under arrest. As other officers handcuffed both suspects, a detective arrived. Detective Laura Bennett stepped out of her unmarked vehicle. When she learned I was an active-duty Green Beret and that my wife had been attacked, she took over completely. She took detailed statements and photographed Chloe's injury very carefully. Sergeant Bowman, assault on a military spouse is taken very seriously here, she explained. We will prosecute this aggressively. Additionally, I am notifying Fort Campbell Military Police. Because crimes against military families are investigated jointly. Fort Campbell's Criminal Investigation Division was immediately notified. SID investigates serious crimes involving military personnel and their families. When a Special Operations soldier's wife is assaulted, SID responds fast. Special Agent Harris arrived at our house within 2 short hours. He interviewed me, Chloe, and reviewed the evidence. Sergeant Bowman assaulting a Green Beret's wife while he is present shows incredible stupidity, Agent Harris said. Or it shows complete ignorance of who they were targeting. We will coordinate with civilian prosecutors and ensure this is prosecuted to the fullest extent. The joint investigation revealed Arthur and Wallace were running a massive scam. They had been running fake HOA extortion scams across the Clarksville and Fort Campbell area. They specifically targeted military families when soldiers were deployed or in heavy training. But they had unfortunately encountered an active-duty Green Beret who was home. I had witnessed the assault and responded with professional restraint, giving prosecutors perfect evidence. The legal leverage was significant. Sid explained to Arthur and Wallace that they faced severe state assault charges. They also faced potential federal charges for targeting military families. Additionally, assaulting a special operations soldier's wife brought massive attention from the military community. It made their prosecution a top regional priority. The high-profile trial took place 8 months later in Montgomery County. Chloe bravely testified about being slapped completely unprovoked in her own driveway. I testified about witnessing the brutal assault. I explained how I restrained Wallace without causing any injury when he attempted to interfere with my emergency call. The responding police testified about the scene and the physical evidence. Medical experts testified about the blunt force injury to Chloe's face. Military family advocacy representatives testified about the predatory targeting of military spouses. The prosecution aggressively emphasized that Arthur had struck a kindergarten teacher. She weighed barely over 100 pounds, and he claimed she assaulted him while her highly trained husband watched. The absurdity and cruelty of that defense claim was painfully obvious. The defense weakly tried to argue that Arthur genuinely felt threatened. The physical evidence completely destroyed that defense. Chloe was just getting her mail and took out her phone. There was absolutely no threat, only senseless violence. The jury deliberated for a mere 90 minutes. They found them guilty on all counts, including felony assault. The sentencing was appropriately harsh. Arthur Kensington received 14 years in state prison, with heavy enhancements for assaulting a military spouse. Wallace Boyd got 9 years as an accomplice. 3 months later, Chloe and I were having a quiet dinner when she brought up the terrifying incident. "Derek, when he slapped me and I looked over and saw you, I knew," she said softly. "I knew he had made a terrible mistake. Not because you had hurt him, but because you would make absolutely sure he faced real justice." 16 years in the Special Forces, I replied. I have been heavily trained to respond to threats with controlled precision. When he slapped you, every instinct wanted me to end him. But my training controlled that raw anger. I called the police, documented everything, and restrained Wallace without injury. I let the justice system handle it properly. That is what special operations discipline truly means. Controlling the violence, not being controlled by it. Chloe smiled quietly. "He is in prison for 14 years, she said. "He assaulted a military spouse right in front of her Green Beret husband. The military community made sure he was prosecuted fully. He learned that targeting military families brings severe consequences. If you or a military family member is assaulted or targeted by criminals, report it immediately. Report to both civilian police and military CID to ensure maximum joint prosecution. Remember that assault on military spouses carries enhanced legal penalties. Military investigations add massive federal leverage to the case. Let the system work while the community ensures justice."